Welcome, 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 welcome. This is Lila Veronica, and we are here with the one, the only Julia Phoenix. Whoa. As a reminder, these interviews with amazing women from all around the world are in order to show you examples of women who are, one, owning their worth, and two, helping other women own their worth as well. So today's conversation with Julia is called Unleash Your Inner Phoenix, which I love based upon the title, but also your name, Julia. And it's the art of self-liberation for empowered connections. Julia is a leadership and liberation mentor. She's the creator of the Rapid Shift Integration Method for healing and DNA activation. Her work is focused on helping women unlock their true soul blueprint, live from the purest essence of themselves, and enjoy deeper fulfillment in love, in relationships, and also in their business. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you so much. What an awesome introduction. Particularly loved the sparkle fingers applause in the beginning.
Yes, you know the sparkle fingers, right?
Yes, yes,
You
I
know it.
do.
I'm all about the sparkle fingers. So if you see me looking down, all I'm doing is I'm actually going to pull up this video. I like to see in case anybody puts comments
Yeah,
on social media, in the Facebook group, and that way we can respond to them. I'll also, put in there some of the key components of what you shared today. So
sure.
what I want to ask you first, I love this talk, self-liberation for empowered connections. We live in a time of really a strong focus on independence.
hmm
So can you explain the difference between independence and self-liberation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you obviously know my stance on, kind of the hyper independence of current at least Western, culture. And I don't feel or believe that it is a healthy way of being, because I feel that, I know that humans really are designed to thrive in connection with one another and in relationship with one another. If we are not moving in that direction, we are actually going against our biology. We're going against ourselves, and we're going against what's in our highest interest. Ultimately, I think it's a trauma response, when people become hyper independent like that. A degree of autonomy, however, is really, really important in order for us to create healthy, thriving relationships that aren't based on codependent bonds or unspoken contracts and just kind of weird, funky stuff that ultimately doesn't make for a fulfilling type of relationship anyway. So there is this kind of like third option here of a connection where liberation is really just, I mean, you could equate it to a sense of freedom to choose, and it's freedom to really feel what's true for you without the constraints of all of the programming and the shoulds and the have tos. And for a lot of women, this shows up like, things like nice girl conditioning, you know, or placating and people pleasing, or manipulation sometimes, right? Which are also, again, like not things we really want to be bringing into a healthy connection. So when I talk about liberation, I'm talking about a space where it's allowed for us to be fully ourselves, our yeses and our nos, and to really own those yeses and nos, and to choose from a place of our free will what is right for us, including choosing to be in connection in a close way with the people who are most supportive for us in our path, and choosing how we curate those connections, and who we allow to have access to us at what level, all of that. It's an empowered way of connecting, as I see it.
I love this. I love this. An empowered way of connecting that you have the freedom to choose. I want to dive into something you just
Yeah.
mentioned because I see it quite often. And we know, I think many of us know, if we were to, even if we're not conscious in the moment, we can kind of step away, look back and know when we're people pleasing,
Sure.
saying yes when we mean no kind of stuff. But what can you give us some examples of this idea of women in particular using manipulation?
Mm.
Because they may not actually recognize they're doing it. I feel like people pleasing they'll recognize, but manipulation they won't recognize as much. Does that feel true to you first before I speak
Yeah,
that?
I would say it does. I mean, this is kind of a controversial message here that I'm about to say, but like I mean, I also see that people pleasing can be a form of manipulation, you know. And it's not something that's conscious. Typically it's usually like some kind of a childhood program. It's not malicious, and manipulation really isn't necessarily malicious at all. And I think that's part of the reason why sometimes we don't recognize it, because it's not intentional, it's not malicious. All it is we're trying to get a need met in kind of a roundabout way. That's all it is, right?
Yeah. So can you give us some examples?
Examples. Yeah, yeah. So,
That's a great way to put it. Getting our needs met in a roundabout way. I love that description.
right, right. So if I, this is like just a really simple thing. Like if I show up for you in this kind of a way, you're going to show up for me in this kind of a way. So even if I don't really feel like it's a little bit different than, well, let me suss this out. How is this different from people pleasing? I mean, again,
Yeah,
like
like
I
an
feel like there's
example.
overlap.
Yeah, there is definitely overlap. I'm wondering if you could give like a day-to-day example. Say there's a husband and a wife or a
Yeah.
boyfriend and girlfriend. Like what might a woman do
Oh my
that is
God.
a little bit manipulative that she may not even realize?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of women withhold communication and use like nonverbal cues. This is one thing that a lot of women don't realize, that they can really just say how they're feeling and what they need. And so they might actually just kind of huff or puff around the house, or say like, like I'm just, mm, yeah, today's just hard or something. And really they're like, but it's a bid for something, but they're not being clear about like what that thing is. Like, hey, I'm feeling lonely. I'm wondering if we could have some time to connect because that's what I'm needing. Instead of just kind of like, a roundabout way of communicating that's kind of manipulative, would be like, um, like, this is kind of challenging actually, Lila. But
Oh, you
'cause
know, a chat. We're gonna go deep into the controversial stuff and be challenging. I actually love
yeah.
what you're saying, because this actually happened recently with me. I was last week, I was tired and hungry.
Uh,
Those two things together, you know how that results.
oh yeah.
You know, tired and hungry. And my sweetheart said something that changed my idea of what the evening would be like. Not that we had
Mm-hmm.
talked about it, but that, it just changed. He's like, oh yeah, I want to do this. And I did not use my words.
Yeah.
I just was like, doing stuff, and he's like, you're being weird energy. And I'm like, I'm fine, just do whatever you want.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would say that's probably like the biggest, most common one that for women
Uh-huh.
that a lot of us can relate to, is just kind of this passive aggressive, like, I'm gonna show you with my energy that I'm upset about something, or I'm gonna show you with my energy that I like need something, right? Or, yeah, and like I said, I think a big one too is like doing something for someone else in order to get something for yourself, when you could really just ask for what you need.
Oh, I love that one
you
too.
know?
Yeah, well, I'll give you the conclusion. What I did was I had a few bites of food and I was much better energy. I was like, I was literally, I had low blood sugar. When I get low blood sugar, I can be off. Just
I
my
understand.
cognition isn't correct. And so I'm conscious of that. So I try to be as mindful as possible, but imperfection, human over here, of
Yeah.
course. So
Yeah.
I love that. So another one would be like something like, I'm gonna make him dinner in hopes that he'll do something,
Exactly. Yes,
something like that.
exactly. Yes, exactly. Or it's going to endear me to him. Or it's like, some women do this, like if they have an uncomfortable conversation coming up that they know they need to have with their partner, it'll be like, I'm gonna kind of like do all of these things to, endear them to me, or you know what I mean? I'm gonna kind of show up in these caretaking ways and pamper them, yeah, make them dinner, whatever, so that the result will be, that they're less likely to be upset with me. I mean, that's a form of manipulation.
Ooh, that's so good. That's so good.
Mhm.
I love that. I'm not a big one to make somebody dinner to get me to do anything, but
People do it though.
I thought of
Yeah.
that one. I was like, ooh, that's a good one, something like that. So
Yeah.
what about in business? Like, what could women
Mm.
do that, so I guess maybe we should clear up, the personal relationship. So instead of doing the manipulation, the people pleasing, learning how to communicate, right?
Absolutely. Learning how to communicate. And this involves like really understanding and navigating the blocks that we have to doing that. Because we're programmed this way. For some of us, it's like, I mean, it's lineage stuff. We watched our moms behave this way. We've watched a lot of women around us behave this way, right? Um, so that's a piece of it. Or, it's coming from places where we feel unsafe to be direct or honest. We're afraid we're going to be rejected. We're afraid we're going to be punished. We're afraid there's going to be a lot of consequences for us actually just taking up space as a whole human inside of a relationship. And so those are the places we really need to go and do some excavation and then start to stretch our capacity to communicate in a different way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you have any specific ideas? I know people can reach out to you later and join your community and get support, but I'm wondering if there's anything right now, like a little tip you could give for say, I'm in that state again where I'm tired and I'm hungry and things change and I'm resistant to the change and I don't know how to deal, I don't know how to use my words correctly in that moment, other than
Yeah.
I'm tired and hungry. What is
Yeah.
it, what would you advise in terms of like in these moments, what kind of communication or some tips or any tricks or something here?
Yeah, I mean, I really think the most important piece in those moments is just like self-awareness. And sometimes, we don't have that until later on. So it's like cultivating that in the moment when you feel like, oh, there's something here, to really get curious about that for yourself. And it's not even necessarily to communicate it right away, but feeling the pull to like, okay, I want to pout right now, you know, and just being with that. And you can sort of ask, like, what part of me doesn't feel safe right now to just say what I need? What am I afraid will happen? And then that's where we go. That's what we sort of sit with. And it might take a little bit of time before you can, do it right away and, communicate. But if you want to be clearer with a partner or a friend or anyone, particularly if you go into like what we would call like a freeze pattern, where you kind of just like feel like you can't talk type of a thing, or like there's something there to say, but it's like,
I call it
like,
the black hole. I call it the black hole. Like
okay.
sometimes, like there's the fight, there's a flight, there's a freeze.
Yes.
I call mine feels more like a mix between the freeze and the flight. It's like
Yeah.
black hole. Like I'll just shut down, nobody in. I'm not
Mm.
coming out. It's not like
Yeah.
running away. It's not fighting. I'm not like scared, frozen. I'm like, mm-mm,
Yeah, yeah.
like a
So
black hole.
that's your mechanism, and that's the way
Yeah.
that your system sort of functions, which is fantastic awareness. But I would say, like, when you're in that space, I mean, that's even something that you could communicate to your partner. Like, that's even a perfect kind of terminology to use. Like, and you can do this outside of the moment of that happening, where you're like, sometimes when I know I need to say something, and it feels uncomfortable for me to do so. I get kind of triggered. Like, this is where I go to this kind of black hole place, and I can't really talk to you, and I'm aware that I'm shutting you out. And then he knows about the black hole,
He
so
knows about the black hole.
okay, yeah, great. So you can say, like, just so you know, i'm I've entered the black hole. Like, I have something I want to say to you, and I just am going to need a minute to let this kind of thaw out, or whatever it is that you kind of need in order to circle back around. It sounds like for you, like, you just need a bit of time, maybe, to be able to let it move through. And that's often the case with some of these responses. It's especially at first, when you start practicing this stuff, like, a lot of it is like retroactively. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up about that, because it's like, why can't I say it in the moment? It's like, because your nervous system freaks out. That's just where you're at. And so having a few key words you can say then, like, I
Black
just
hole.
froze, I'm in
I
the
love
black
it.
hole, like, whatever it is. And then they're kind of like, got it. Like, that way, you're still communicating, you're still in the same reality, and you don't have to do any, like, weird shit, to try to communicate without communicating.
Yeah. And then some people get into the fight mode, right?
Yeah.
They want to get, and that's a whole different um
Yeah.
experience. So maybe they could say something like, I'm in fight
I'm in
mode.
fight. Yeah.
I'm in it, yeah, just to and I love how you said, like, sometimes, people beat themselves up, but it's just a little time that passes for me, for sure. Like, it's not
Yeah.
much time that passes at all before I'm out of it, recognize it. I recognize it when I'm in it, but I'm able to pretty shortly thereafter communicate, like, hey, I was off, I'm back on. There's
Yeah.
not really a large timeline. So I get that. So being easy on yourself is part of the self-liberation. Is that the case?
100% exactly. Yes. And sometimes people, I mean, even with something like liberation, I think people sometimes think about it like it's this kind of static state of perfection where, you're no longer encumbered by anything, and you are, and this is like this American dream, like wild horses, and just, you've got no more stuff or no more humanity. No, like, it's not that. It is the sense of being able to give yourself grace for your humanity, and little by slow peeling away all of these layers of programming that aren't you, so that you're more and more and more you're more and more and more able to show up imperfectly, right? And know that, like, that's enough, and you get to have love in those places.
It's beautiful.
Mhm.
So what about, because you help people in with themselves, within relationships, but also in business.
Yes.
So how is self-liberation for empowered connections? How can you relate that to some business experiences people have?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're the first one, I'm sure, who knows this and has taught me a lot about it. But people get weird when money's involved sometimes, because it's like it's all that survival stuff, right? And so sometimes I think people are walking around, and maybe women especially, where it's like there's this sense of, like, dance monkey, like, you've really got to, like, perform, or you've got to show up in a certain way,
Yeah.
right? Or you've got to please everyone you come across, or I'll just say for myself, and this is a little vulnerable to share, but, like, my pattern is more like to fawn. That's how I survived a lot of my life. And sometimes, like, I see this, and I have seen it in myself, and I see it in other people, where it's like there's this kind of fawning behavior with clients or potential clients or people on the internet, where I'm afraid, maybe it's I'm afraid of being canceled. Maybe it's I'm afraid somebody's not going to be happy with my services. So I'm going to overextend and I'm going to, write these really long messages that are like laced with this like really sweet saccharine kind of tone, right? Even when it feels performative for me, it feels inauthentic, right? And then there's often too like a sense of inauthenticity that can come through marketing, and there's manipulation that can be there too, um, that is like a basically a survival based way of getting, our financial needs met and our social needs met, because we want to be liked. We want to be liked on the internet. I'm talking mostly about online business here because, I mean, this is online. I'm an online business leader. You're an online
Even
business
in
leader.
person, the
But
way
even,
people show up. Yeah.
yeah,
I love to, so Elle Ingalls
yeah,
well,
yeah,
Elle. Um, Julia's actually been to a retreat
yeah,
with Elle, so she knows Elle. You've been to maybe a couple where Elle's been there.
yeah,
So
yeah, a couple.
Elle actually added to her method, pressure-free method, there's a fight, flight, freeze, fawn,
Yeah.
fib.
Oh, okay. How does she define fib?
Well, she had, people like what it just came up in my mind, fib is like lying, basically.
Lying. Yeah.
Little miniature lies, and that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it just came to me in my mind. Like that could be something that's you do to
Oh,
manipulate,
100%.
or maybe extend the truth and not tell the whole truth, or not tell the whole truth. Or, so in business, I feel like you mentioned the fawning piece. I think even the fibbing piece, I've witnessed it actually. I know I've seen it. I've been places
Yeah.
where I hear people and I'm like, I know
Mm.
them and I know their story because they've shared stuff and they're saying one thing and I know it's different.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
actually been in groups where people refer to me and talked about me and fibbed. And I'm like, that ain't true. Like, I didn't do that. I'm not that awesome. Like,
You're like, don't bring me into this.
don't put me on some ladder.
Oh
I ain't,
my
bring
gosh.
me down, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fawning piece I think is a big one. A
Fawning
big,
and fibbing, I
big.
think is really big, especially for women who are business leaders, because we feel in some cases like, who we are, what we have to offer, just plain and simple, just like, hey, here's what I do, here's why what I do is valuable, and here's what I charge for it, right? Which is all stuff that you really taught me how to do initially, to like really stand behind that and own that worth and everything. But when you feel uncomfortable with that, when you haven't quite, that hasn't quite landed in your body as like, this is enough, there's a way where like we feel like we have to dress it up, you know? We have to dress it up. We have to make it into this other thing over here because that's what Susie over here is doing and Mary over here is doing, right? Or we have to talk about it in a particular way, or we have to really, really, really super exaggerate the results and it's not quite, you know. Um, or this shows up too where it's like there's this kind of I would say like hyper masculine, and just in terms of the energy, kind of like I've got to like show up and post every day like this many times a day and I can't miss, or I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't drop the ball, like this very rigid. And again, it's like performance, right? It doesn't leave us with a feeling of um, being free. And then it doesn't feel like our voice when we are showing up. It just feels like a performance.
Which is interesting because you don't see the masculine actually doing that.
I mean, like,
You know what I mean? That's what's
not the
interesting.
ones I'm close to.
There might be a few out there here and there, but if you see a lot of men that are doing business online, they're actually not
They're
doing
kind of
that.
like, I'm definitely enough.
Yeah. So it's like, I would say it's like, it's interesting the doing and the, having to be there and stuff. That same thing is kind of a people pleasing thing. It's like, it's not
Yeah.
even to me, at least I could be incorrect here, but it doesn't feel masculine. It actually feels just the insecure feminine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Well,
kind of
so it's compensatory, so it's a mimicry of like some maybe idea of masculine, I would say, which is like the consistency or the whatever it is, right?
huh? Yeah, it's interesting because you see all these guys and they're like, they're not doing it that. They're gonna put what
Right.
not gonna waste time. They're gonna
Right.
do what's
Right.
needed done, and then they're gonna move on to the next thing. And so it's interesting. I mean,
Yeah, totally.
that's a whole nother talk,
It's a
right?
totally other
Um,
conversation, but
I
yeah.
know we could talk about how much we love,
Yeah.
So before we go, before we, I want everybody to know how they can get a hold of you. But before we do that, can you share a little bit about this method that you've created?
Sure. So rapid shift integration is, I mean, it's a bit of a departure from a lot of my earlier work in that it is more of a multidimensional healing modality. So I use sound and frequency to do clearing, multi-generational like lineage clearing. Whatever is there on an energetic level, because a lot of times if we're talking about some of these blocks, I mean, I brought up lineage before, but I mean, you're talking about throat chakra stuff, and just we've got to take into consideration the fact that you know thousands and thousands of our ancestors lived in this world where it was extremely dangerous to use your voice in an empowered way, and we may have had multiple experiences and different timelines with this. There are all kinds of things, and that's all like in your coding and in your cells. So I do obviously um believe that there are other things like inner child work and nervous system regulation work and all of that, but rapid shift integration, it's a bit of a different element that's there. It works with your DNA and your cells, your peems and chakras. So it works on kind of these different levels, and it's especially great for people who feel like I've been doing this work for a while. Like I've been unpacking like my childhood stuff. I've done maybe a lot of somatic healing, emotional healing work, a lot of therapy, etc. But there's still like some stuff there that I feel, and maybe there's this sense like maybe it is in my ancestry, or maybe there's something that's like I can't quite see from this lifetime type of a thing. That's where rapid shift integration is a great method
Yeah, and it
to
sounds
bring
like a
in.
very self-liberating uh, uh, method
Oh,
that's in your
totally.
box as well. So I wanted to make sure to bring it forward for everybody to know that, you're the queen of helping people with relationships and
Thank you.
relationships with themselves, figuring out what's blocking them and helping them
Yeah,
connect, communicate for this empowerment, in terms of connection with others and in love life and business and all that. So if somebody wants to liberate themselves and have more empowered connections, will you share how they can get connected to you?
absolutely. Yes, I would love to. So, you can message me on Facebook, Julia Phoenix. You can go to our website, which is kind of still under construction, but there's enough there that you can get a little sense. That's www.juliaphoenix11.com, and 11 is spelled out like the word, not like the number. And I believe you can email us there too. But messaging me on Facebook or Instagram, um, Julia Phoenix 11 on Instagram, those are really great ways to get a hold of me too.
Cool. And then you have some Facebook groups that are pretty active,
I
right?
do. Yes. Yes. So I have Leadership and Liberation, which is a group that's just for women and people who identify as women. And then I have another like co-ed group called Julia's Inner Child Playground and Healing Community. Those are my free groups, and then I have a paid membership community as well.
Cool. Okay. And then do you have anything special going on right now? Any programs
In
or
fact, yes, if you resonate with throat chakra blocks and feel like you want to learn how to kind of speak up in a different way, in a way that's more resonant with your authentic, soul essence, I'm doing a month-long event called the Voice Activation that's coming up at the end of this month, the end of June. And then I'm also doing a 3-month mastermind. called Liberated DNA, the mastermind. So either one of those, I would say, would be a great next step for people who are really interested in, yeah, in deepening their sense of liberation.
Beautiful, beautiful. We'll put the links for all of that in the notes here.
Yeah.
So thank you, Julia. Is there anything else? If
Well,
you were to
thank
say
you.
to women, one thing to all women who really want to own their worth right now, what would that be?
You were not created just to please other people. That's not the purpose of your existence. You were not created just to meet the needs of others. That's
Beautiful,
what I would say.
beautiful. I hope that sits deeply with somebody, or maybe
I
more
hope so
people.
too. It came through pretty strong, so probably someone needed to hear it.
I felt you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, friends. This has been amazing, an amazing interview with a woman I love dearly. Thank you, Julia, for being here. Appreciate you so much. And as a reminder, this is your year. Step up and own your worth. You deserve it.